Okay, we're going to move to our next session, which I'll introduce in a moment, but for the astute ones in the room here, and maybe wanting to move to the front of the room, there's a gift bag. So feel free to move forward and grab a gift bag. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll introduce our next speaker. So I'd like to introduce Aparna Tripathi and Ashish Pruth, who are from Xebia, who will be talking about extending the life of core banking investments to enable innovation at speed. So thanks very much.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, hope I'm audible. Thank you all for making to this session. So first of all, to introduce myself, I am Aparna Tripathi and I'm a part of Team Xebia. I work with a number of financial institutions as the key point of contact in the role of a solution architect and program manager. Here with me, I have Ashish. Ashish, could you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Aparna. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish, and I'm responsible for driving business relationships within APAC and Australia. I'm currently based out of Singapore. Australia is like my second home now. Over to you, Aparna.
Okay. It's been a beautiful day here. I hope you guys are having a good time at Appy and APJ. And again, I welcome you all to the session. The topic for today is that we'll be discussing today how Xebia has created a holistic and innovative layer in Appian to provide to their customers a full 100% front-to-back digitized solution. We have created a modern age banking solution using Appian and other powerful integrations. Before moving to that, Ashish.
So I will just give you a very quick background about Xebia. I'm sure most of you might be aware about as to who we are, but just to give you a quick glance about what we do and what's our presence across the globe. So we are a US-based organization headquartered in Atlanta, and we span across 21 different offices across the globe with close to around 6,200 plus employees worldwide. Globally, we support a lot of banks and insurance organizations. So we work with close to around 63 plus banks and insurance companies out of the Fortune 150 organizations across the globe. Having worked with a lot of digital transformation projects in US, Europe, and now in APAC and Australia as well, we are also in the process of setting up close to around 6 new digital banks in the region. You can see some of the logos on the footer of the slide with whom we work. Just to name a few: Barclays, Kotak Bank, yes, Aspiration Bank in the US, Amex in the US are some of the marquee customers who are associated with us. Anyway, we are not going to talk much about our entire overall service offerings, but we would primarily talk about our Appian use case, which is the theme of the discussion today.
Thank you, Ashish. So Ashish has given a brief introduction about what Xebia does. But here, let's focus on what are some key challenges that we have resolved for our banking customers, and what are the challenges that we have seen them facing throughout these years. So, banking customers can have a lot of problems. It can be increased regulation, competition from non-traditional players, or the ever-changing economic environment. Now, in order for the banks to compete with these ever-changing landscape, they have to constantly re-innovate their services and also adapt to the challenging landscapes. We here have constituted some few key points that we felt banking institutions face as a challenge. Coming to the first point, banks often have multiple applications and they also have multiple third integration tools. They have data scattered across various different platforms, which can cause a big challenge for their customer representatives. Example, let me give you a use case. We had a client who was based in the US, and they had a banking application which had 4 other applications. Now for the customer representative, to solve or resolve any customer queries, they had to dig in all these 4 applications and navigate through them to give them a solution. The second point is the long and complex onboarding processes. Again, giving you an example of one of our clients we had, a particular client came to us because they had a customer onboarding journey which was 16 steps long. Their core requirement was if we can shorten this journey for them and automate some of their processes. The third point comes with back office operations. So there are multiple back office operations in banking. It can range from clearance to support, and these back office operations have multiple mundane and redundant tasks. Now, having so much of manual intervention leads to increased cost. It can lead to increased times and can also lead to a lot of errors. Another point that again correlates with the other point is the high degree expectations of the millennial customer. I think we're all aware, and we all are millennials here, that today's customer is much more tech savvy and they have a better understanding of the products and services that are available to them. They are much more mobile, and they're also less likely to be global to a particular banking institution. The last point in our presentation is about legacy systems. It can be a very difficult and time-consuming process for the legacy systems to transform their core banking into newer technology. They have to reevaluate and make correct decisions, also weigh on the costs and benefits while doing so. So we have covered a few of the key challenges, but the million-dollar question is how do we resolve them? So going further, we'd like to address on how we have built a holistic and innovative layer in Appian and how we could address to some of these problems. So here we will discuss about the approach and our solution in creating a modern age banking, which is 100% front to back digitalized. In the below section, you can see the different services that we have in banking. It can be current accounts, savings account, mortgages, loans, etc. What we have done is we have used Appian's high on case management capabilities along with these powerful banking tools such as Thought Machine, Episode 6, Hyperverge, Orion, Hawk AI, and much more. So after integrating with Appian, we used Thought Machine for our core banking problems. We used Episode 6 for card details, and Hyperverge and Orion were used for KYC processes. Also, we used Hawk AI for AML, and we used Genesis to bring in calls from the customers into Appian. So what we did through Thought Machine and through the integration of Thought Machine and Appian, we created a single snapshot of all the data for the customer representative. They could now easily see all the data presiding on a single screen and could take any actions accordingly. The challenge the representatives were facing in navigating through the different systems was resolved through this. The second point, which was the onboarding processes, we, using straight-through processing, created a very flexible assisted onboarding process, which was again created by leveraging the high case management capabilities Appian gives. For the back office operations, we decided to use hyper automation services, intelligent document processing, and smart workflow mechanism, which reduce the mundane task that the back office operation team was earlier using, and we could automate these processes and make it much more efficient. Also, manual intervention would only be required when it was absolutely necessary in dealing with complex scenarios. We again improved the customer experience by mass personalization and creating a contextual user experience. Also, using Appian's scalable and secureable infrastructure, it was much easier to build services on top of legacy systems. So any customer who wants to change their legacy system and wants to create a cultural shift could easily do so, leveraging Appian's capability. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to give you a small demonstration of the few customer services that we have built, and again we'll discuss on how we resolve these challenges. The first point is unified customer data for customer service representative. From this dashboard, you can easily see that we have a screen which will give us all the information about the customer who is calling the customer representative. We have used Genesis 6 and Amazon Connect and some fewer technologies to bring these calls into Appian. Now on the left side, you can see that we have a section where the where any representative could receive any calls from the customer, and then he can see all the related case for the customer within this dashboard. What are we doing is that we are providing intelligent data to the representative, and now they can take any action based on this data. Even before the customer tells us a problem, we can promptly describe them that currently, in this case example, they are currently have an onboarding request on and might need to update a beneficiary. So in this way, we can provide intelligent data to the representatives. Also, we are giving them a unified view of all the data that is present, and they can take any actions or resolve any customer queries efficiently. The second point is straight-through processing. Here we have a case dashboard in which we can see the complete customer journey from the onboarding to the KYC processes. Again, we have used Hyperverge and Orient for the KYC processes. And using this Hawkeye, AI, Hyperverge, and document rules engine, we have done the straight-through processing of all the customer requests. Coming to our next point, we have created next generation customer UI and customer service. So using Appian's right state-of-art tech and their intuitive UI, we have given the customers simple and efficient design. The last point is enabling the banking systems for future by building flexible processes. So we in Xebia have believed that it's not only important to meet the current demands, but it is also important to set the right architecture so that banks can modify their processes easily. We are delivering total experience, be it customer experience, creating high efficient processes, increasing ROI, or anything else. In this dashboard, we can see a quick view of the customer representatives data. So we can see all the customer cases, all the clients that he currently has, any risk that he sees in the clients, and the different alerts that are available for him. Through this dashboard, we can see information pertaining to a particular client. So again, here we see all the information for the client. We see the KYC information, we can see any documents, and different operations that a representative can take on the screen. We have an option to see the event timeline for this customer, which I'll be describing in the next slide. So here you can see that we can filter out the different timelines for that customer. We can see when he was onboarded, when the KYC was triggered, etc. Once we select these events, it will generate a complete timeline of their processes. Now, through this timeline, you can also now dig into the details and see if there was any communication around this, any documents that had to be sent during this process. So for example, here we can see that after onboarding, we had an outgoing mail that we had sent to the customer, which we can efficiently see through this timeline. Coming to the next slide, we also have a document view, which will give the customer representative all the details on the internal and external documents that are present for that client. Because he or she can see all the documents, and along with can dig into it and see all the details for that particular form. The last one is process mining. So process mining, as we all know, helps business analyze their processes based on event logs. We can discover, monitor, and improve our business processes. It will also help us identify any bottlenecks or inefficiencies in our system. So here we have a view of the process mining. You can see the total requests that were there in the system, the average cost for them, the completion time, any deviation that happened, etc. Here we have all the milestones for that particular customer journey. We can also check for each and every milestone the exact average time and the cost that was required for that one particular milestone. Then we have a timeline of we had a time trend where we can see for each and every day what was the time taken for that process. Were there any deviations in the time? What was the average time? What was the ideal time? And on which days our time did not work according to our expectations, which will help us analyze what the real cause of the problem was. Here again we have a few graphs down again to see the different deviations that happened. So we have a graph here which shows a pie chart here which shows the deviations that happened in our application. On the bottom part we have a version trend. Now this is a very impactful tool which will help us compare the different versions of the customer journey. So suppose we had created 4 to 5 versions of this journey and we want to see which operated the best. What was the average time for each of those? What was the cost involved in each of those? We can see this through this chart here, and we can compare and decide for ourselves which journeys were the best for our suitable use cases. Coming on to the last slide, Ashish.
So this was one of the use case wherein we were able to seamlessly deliver a very impressive user experience for the customer. So I'm sure you would be able to correlate with the key challenges that Aparna indicated in her previous slides, wherein we were not only able to give the unified customer experience, but we were also in a position to simplify the entire processes for the respective customer, thereby enabling the customer to reduce their operational cost by close to around 14% to 21% year over year. And this was one of the use cases that we demonstrated today. I'm sure, in your daily set of challenges that you deal with, you might be coming across various digital transformation-led programs wherein these kind of challenges or some similar challenges might resonate with which Appian or a raw-code solution can resolve. So feel free to ask any questions if you have pertaining to this use case that we have shared with you just now. Any questions so far? Yeah. Can you repeat your question?
How long does a journey like that take?
So there was a consulting exercise which was being done prior to the implementation and the delivery of this entire use case, which took close to around 2.5 months to 3 months, which was more of a consulting exercise based on the business requirement gathering and the business requirement document creation exercise. Post that, the entire delivery and implementation took close to around 6 to 7 months. So that's the typical range which some of our customers have experienced in this particular use case, but it depends from customer to customer. In one of the odd cases, we have seen that some of the data-related inputs were not available, because of which the entire timeline took a pretty much longer time. So depends on a scenario to scenario. Otherwise, if all the inputs are there, usually it takes between 5 to 6 months or so, approximately. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all. Yeah, sorry, you had a question.
Have you done anything to set up for managing changes in regulation that will happen across basically these onboarding processes or anything in time? Have you had to handle that yet with any clients who are using it?
Yes, we had. As I mentioned in my previous slide, we had enabled a lot of digital transformation projects for various banks across. Every different bank in the respective country has got its own set of compliance and regulations to adhere with. So this particular aspect goes through an entire consulting exercise, because in case if those regulations needs to be met, it has to be totally understood and totally documented before we actually start implementing a use case. So yes, we have dealt with it. Maybe we can talk about it post the session. Okay, thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you.